More about the environment. Yeah, but in this case. Cool. We're now ready. So, opening government when you're ready. Yeah. Yeah.
Having 3, 2, 1. Hello, laws shouldn't be aspirational, they should be enforced as they are written, and if that enforcement is dissatisfactory for the population, they should be allowed to vote out the government that set those laws, they should be allowed to reform those laws as they see fit. We think that Robocop is the only way to have a law in which that happens. Because as long as the enforcement of laws is discretional, as long as the enforcement of laws is unequal, or is radically distributed in a way that means that some people do get fined, some people don't, some people do get harmed while other people don't, then we think that democracies fail, and we think that democracies are more powerful. So, four pieces of framing to begin today. First, this is not about faulty AI. We are told that this is an advanced AI that is capable. So we are having to have debates about whether AI is, like, by its nature effective, but we don't think this is about AI that's just effective because it's not capably coded. Second, because this is the preferred solution, we take a hypothetical law. So we have an access to AI that's far more powerful than what we have today. The second piece of framing is that we would enforce the status laws. That is to say, in China we enforce Chinese laws, in Australia we enforce Australian laws. Third, scrutiny applies equally on both sides of the house. So, the degree of scrutiny that applies to law enforcement today is still applied to law enforcement on the their side of the house.
Clarification?
Yes, sure.
In a first world motion, you cannot just say we have here and it will work. You have to give reasons as to why it will work.
Sure. I think there are like a variety of reasons why this would work. First, because like if you're a government and you're coding a robot to enforce your laws, you probably want the robot to enforce your laws well. Maybe more importantly though, once the robot is like issuing you parking fines, you want to know what, like whether the robot is actually accurately issuing you parking fines. There's a huge amount of pressure for like law enforcement to be good at their job. That is why there's so much scrutiny on this in status quo. So scrutiny applies to code law. This means you probably release the code in whether the robot you release data on how many people you're arresting and why, or at least the data is available to scrutiny in some fashion. For political reasons. Four, humans are to some extent involved in decisions of like life or death. So, 4 arguments in this agree. Sure.
Well, what caused you for that scenario within the police office?
Oh, we created this way that fire around stuff, right? And like they might die. Like I can talk to people like humans like like technology to be in that room. Okay. But so 4 arguments under agree. First, while law enforcement becomes more equal in all cases. We think that machine learning is incredibly good at creating an equal system. First, because we are incredibly conscious now of, well, first, because algorithms do not discriminate. That is to say, if you're in a given scenario and a person does a thing, the algorithm looks at the person doing the thing and decides whether that is a crime or not. We think that's a pretty objective decision that an algorithm is able to make. They might say algorithms today have a sequence of biases that are caused by their programmers and the training algorithms that we have. We think that our acute consciousness of this today means that we are more likely to address that problem tomorrow, and that incremental biases are adjustable. Why incremental biases adjustable? Because in status quo, when individuals are enforcing the law, when people are breaking the law, you will get that with bad apples isolation. We say, oh, that was also racist, but there's not a systematic problem. It's just that one with a bad apple. The difference is, on the outside of the house now, you have a Robocop that consistently arrests more black people. If the Robocop consistently arrests more black people, we say that algorithm is racist, so you can adjust. So there's a clear diagnostic mechanism on the outside of the house, and a clear adjustment that can be made if you have something in the data as opposed to a cultural issue inside of the population. No. So the third reason why NLs like to be better is that there is likely some level of discretion still. That's to say, law enforcement is subject to politics. Politics is still subject to people. If people find the enforcement of laws to be unequal, to be unfair, to be unjust, they are still able to reform both the Robocop and the laws that it is enforcing. In both of those instances, we think democratic mechanisms are able to adjust. Why is democratic mechanisms more able to adjust on the outside of the house than on the their side of the house? Because you can change all Robocops at once. You can change the algorithm in every single Robocop administrates the law differently, they don't get to do that under their own honest house. No, thank you. So the second reason why we get less bias to enforcement is because people are bad actors in general. Because people have implicit biases, have demographic selection, because if you align with a set of ideas and supposed ideals in your mind, you can't exactly control, but mean that you make decisions that are not perfectly fair all the time. That's why we found out that get a more balanced importance for in all cases. Second thing is that you get more efficient law enforcement. And this is actually hugely important. Because it's in 95% of the cases. If you compare Chinese laws and American laws, they look almost identical except on the margin, right? Like most Chinese have come to agree after like 5,000 years of development that there is like a set of ideals that are roughly necessary for society to be functional. You can't steal, you can't steal from people, you can't do like a variety of things that we do. So that what I think that means is the enforcement of most laws aren't like discretionary, they are controversial. If you are able to administrate and enforce laws more efficiently, more effectively, faster, which I think is just generally true when you have a robot that you can map produce, that can control the truth, and that can enforce these laws, then you get a society that is far more functional because it is just more efficient to enforce the laws to begin with. This affects the large portion of people, I mean, it's the majority of what law enforcement does. It's asking people to make sure people don't litter. It's like making daily life better in measurable ways. And we could, like, just reducing the amount of petty theft in the city so drastically improves the person's experience of life that is worth that trade-off to begin with. But, yeah, sure.
Okay, the downside to everything about mass adjustment is that any fuck-up will be mass do, and everyone will be fucking that society in the meantime. That isn't legitimate. It will be okay with the utilization of those people just to adjust the algorithm.
That's totally fine. We just need the bigger the fuck is the quicker you adjust, right? So the moment you have like a little bit of a fuck up, you're like, oh shit, all the other robots can be doing that too. It's not like all crimes happen at once, and then like everyone's fucking screwed. One crime happens, you're like, oh, we over adjusted for that, so we tune it back. We think it's perfectly okay to have like situations where we learn lessons from stories. That's also exactly how current law enforcement works. Bad law enforcement, you say, oh, that enforcement is bad, but we change the law. That's exactly how democracy works. The third argument is that even in the worst cases, that is in our cases, we think that this technology is still better. Why is it? Because in our democracy, what you fear is not the enforcement of the laws that are on the books. You fear the sporadic enforcement of non-laws. You fear the enforcement of laws that don't actually exist. That if we come to come you and demand a bribe that they're not legally allowed to ask for, because they have violence over you, they have power violence over you, they're able to demand that thing. When a Robocop is there, that can't be written into the code because the country's laws do not allow for that. Because country's laws don't stipulate that. And the alleviation of that fear, the fear of sporadic violence from local and developed nations, is the fear that matters. For those reasons, we're proud to propose.
So I thank the Prime Minister and I welcome the leader of the opposition to start the opening opposition substantive argumentation. Here.
Why is this right?
Занимателите си да пиши тага на скапа.
Now, I really hate cops. The amount of time that I've been stopped by cops is like so much. I've been trying to be gotten bribers from them. I believe in the country that open government talks about, and still it would be much better than giving the state ultimate mechanism to crack down on my rights, the ultimate mechanism to stop electricity, the ultimate mechanism to harm me. We think that at least on the margin, it is much better to have living human beings who are less likely to be sent in these areas, less likely to discriminate and crack down on people, less likely to do negative outcomes of the state. And this is basically going to be our standard case mainly, and then we're going to talk about chilling effect and funding of all of the local communities. Before that, let's respond to basically everything that all environments. Machine learning, we cannot just. My first question is how? How does this work? They have all illustration or explanations how this happens. Here's why you can adjust. Because After a certain period, and we know this from the technology we have right now, AI stacks over each other. The new line of code that it writes in order to self-improve itself, going continuously going. Meaning that after a certain point in time, humans cannot stop the AI because the building of the code in its masses are faster than the humans can do it. Simple logic works. Humans need to sleep. Humans need to physically do the code, whereas the code can just continue working. But here's the thing, the code itself is still based on the predisposed data that we have created before. What is this predisposed data? Super racist, that I'm going to explain more in the time, but I want to respond to everything so that there is no scam here. Democratic mechanism. You know what proportion of society are criminals? Very, very small amount of them. You know what proportion of society are the people who hate criminals? Large proportion of society in this particular case. So what democratic mechanisms are you talking about on your side of house? People are really supposed to hate on these side of things. Well, again, what are these things of time? Secondly, effective law enforcement. I would just like to say, I don't care about hard fines and these type of things, but also this is the nuance of concrete situations. You kill because you're hungry, and you have no alternatives. You're forced to join the game because school doesn't exist for you because of all these things. So, given that there's some nuance, and given that there's some choices, I'm not sure if effective utilization of law. And finally, on the corruption point, if you give this to a Chinese or the Vietnamese like they bribe me every step on the way when I was in Vietnam, don't bribe me more. They can write it in the code, they can do it, trust me, and take you corrupt and then say, well, compensation. Substantive frame. What are you like to program on the code? And here's what you're programming. First, people start up with simple AI most likely, right? If you see X, you see Y. Then the way it works is the code built up on the top by the data that we fed. But the point is that the data we use is historically racist because the way that we determine, the way that we capture data was because of the bias of the previous time. Think about the 50s and 50s, where, for example, you have extreme bias for current population. Even today, I would say, our data fairly biased in terms of specific groups, fairly biased in terms of crime, and these type of things. Why is it bad? Because the AI is likely to be built up this way, likely to improve basic rules. So the robots likely to be comparatively more rated, less susceptible to change, and when it's a black guy or a white guy, I need to believe for the black guy. But then, notice these corporations have KPI incentive towards themselves. They want to prove that they were or crime. With their client, if this is like you back, then the majority of the population is want to hear these people, they are doing more than this, but because they want to take out this message, they have a vested interest in incentive to send it out in this area, to capture more criminals, to police people more, and to do this type of things. Fine, so what is why is it significant intent? Because people are emotional, unfortunately. People have an emotional take particular on crime. This is why crime is bipartisan. It doesn't matter if you're left or right, because you care about your own self-interest if you don't live in a crime-ridden area, even though there's very, very small percentage of crime happening here. The fact that you picture, for example, your kid getting robbed, the fact that you picture these type of things means that you as a older population are antithetical towards these type of things. This is, for example, why in the United States, prosecutors become governors in these particular cases. People build career paths on it. So the incentive is always to push these type of things. Now, why is this drastically increased on our side? Before I ask you.
My friend, what world do you live in? In Bulgaria, there's a police officer for every 6 people.
That's not one example because Bulgaria has the biggest amount of faults. Like, so, now, here's the thing. Here's the exhibition. Here's where we respond to standing. The price of sending individual people is higher than the price of sending the cops. The robot. Why? Because there is some unknown risk factor in sending them in these places. Maybe the guy could get stabbed. Maybe the guy could get shot. This is psychologically true. Like this is why cops exist, but they don't necessarily send them to all of these places to police guns. Even if it's all bad, the fact that something may happen to you that you don't necessarily expect, the fact that there's some kind of damage, there are KPIs on the particular police the bosses, the people that are there, or the amount of times that happen to their population. But thirdly, the cop can do the cop organization, right? If something happens to them, they can log it, which lowers the amount of funding. Meaning that there are some kind of pressure points that lower the amount of you over policing these areas because you're afraid of the safety, because you're afraid of doing all of these activities. And again, standards are human limitations. You have to sleep, you have to eat. The robot doesn't in these particular cases. Meaning you have much greater capacity to do it in this particular moment. The one thing that they may have a response to, the robot can dash, okay, but presumably at a certain moment, you can know how to advance the production of these robots. Maybe they use economics of scale, you receive funding from the EU, probably it's not that expensive and a whole human life being left. What is the bottom line? You over police these areas. This is bad for a couple of reasons. The first and most basic, people get harmed, right? This, for example, an innocent black kid walking on the street and it being shot by the Robocop because the Robocop thinks it's not wrong story. This is, for example, you actually being in a criminal situation, for example, and the cop at least being able to de-escalate. Because look at it, right? The ball doesn't talk, right? It's something that's not in the or even if it speaks, it's not particular like the thing in human communication. The thing that the human being, yeah, we're checking the inside now, see. But like here, even if it can talk, it's not the same as, for example, the human being being able to see your emotional states, being able to see, for example, you being scared, being able to know the context of your human. All we wrote this down because this is crucial. You know what to say, which the law couldn't do, which it means you're able to de-escalate the situation, whereas the robot has only option to choose and plan and do these particular things. And finally, this means that communities absolute more. You're more likely to create gangs. You're more likely to join gangs. You're more likely to turn to crime when this offensive is put on you in this particular case, which continues the spiral of crime and continues the problem that open government is also set. Meaning that on all possible measures of counter-terrorism. Final case I'm showing a bit, even though I don't have that much time. Look, it's very simple. The robot will feed, most likely feed the wider population information that crime is dealt with in these types of cases. Because it will tell you the bot did this game, or the bot, for example, because the bot did this, you don't have this type of crime. Because people have a bias toward time stuff, right? Because all the time is important and the bot needs to show data point, means that people believe that the situation is false. The problem is the situation in big business is not false. Because the way forward is money education and money jobs in these types of places, which creates a chilling effect on the amount of money that you get, which later increases the amount of crime in the long run. For all these reasons, oppose the law.
I thank the leader of all, BPM, here.
Oh, fuck.
Give me a second. All right, whenever you're ready.
You good?
What?
You're good.
Why do you care about me?
Yes, and you feel perfect most of
Yeah.
That was exactly.
The first thing I want to talk about is how Obo has no idea how machine learning works. Everything you just heard from the last speaker is an example of unsupervised learning, which is what every AI person who fears robots is worried about, where we just let AI go rogue and learn by itself. This is not the motion, obviously, for several reasons. One, because the kind of learning we're talking about is supervised learning, which entails taking an empiric set and pointing to an outcome. So i.e., if you train an AI on the data of someone being shot, or in a scenario where one person is being cornered by a bunch of people who are trying to rob them, then that data point is programmed with the AI itself. They're like, oh, there's a human like finite capacity, and we're just gonna let AI do whatever it wants. This is probably not the case in that, yes, the technology holds a scope over a vast majority of society. It affects our day-to-day lives. So they can likely invest a multitude of resources to ensure that this is done well, not getting robots to train itself. The second thing they say is there's predisposed like racist data to everyone and this is bad. A few things here. One, I would argue the way AI trains is often based on human feedback, i.e. in scenarios or empirical scenarios where there are encounters of racism, human feedback is crucial for developing AI models, which allows humans to affirm this is an instinct for racism that should not be replicated. What that can do is actually evoke awareness in the AI model itself, and in a vast majority of cases, it's unlikely to do that. But I think it also conveniently ignores second the material and acts gives you about why human oversight is incredibly probable in the development of these models to begin with, and that external checks, i.e. Western liberal democracies building a strong impetus to publish or scrutiny, means in most cases AI is not going to do that. See how then partners maxim is like, oh, there's a fuck up and it affects everyone. That's the point. In the status quo, it is one thing that the problem is due to bad apples, people who express that, oh, there's just a racist police officer, that we ignore that laws in our systems are often codified with these partnerships. But when that fuck up happens, you correct the entire system instead of just punishing one police officer in isolation. That flips the thing there. The second thing I want to do is chat about better policing. They literally say it doesn't matter. I want to provide some illustrations. In India, corruption runs rampant such that rapists and murderers and people who do atrocious instances of crime on the street get away with it because they give cops money. The most impoverished people in the world are consistently marginalized by groups. So you might want to pretend you don't care about efficiency, but when it comes to those individuals, having a cop that does not take bribes, that does not actively punish you for speaking out against your oppressor, can make a very large difference in your life. What does this actually look like? It looks like places like Texas, for example, where laws are oftentimes abandoned and not like analyzed by police officers because they're afraid of their own lives, now being enforced through robotic officers. It means that in places where police officers were hesitant or wary to engage with because they were afraid of allegations of racism, because they were afraid of the danger of the community, are now enforced. This is the only concrete benefit you get in this round because the states want to already, in fact, improve those areas regardless of the nature of the regime. So what you have happened is real human lives saved, real justice served, and in instances where cops are not occupied, which means in the realistic picture things, millions of people in places like India, thousands of people, even in Western liberal democracies like the United States. I would also then second prove why discretion is used because they're like, oh, now robots are going to kill everyone and arrest everyone. Guys, this is not the point. One, the state does not want to alienate people. So if the state exerts a robot such that it arrests everyone, when you have someone who's drunk and dying, they want that person to pick up the phone and call 911 because they want to save another human life. So the state does want to degree in most cases where people feel the ability to use officers as a resource to help them receive the help they so need. So what ends up happening is the way this is likely to be used is discretionary. And keeping in mind that the training data set is going to be based on police officer behavior, it's also presumable then that we can use discretion and apply it to the animal model as well. Piece of material then, which they flag but never actually explains, oh, this is used in hypocrisies for bad things. One, I would posit this is largely non-unique and that presumably the Chinese government and other mass surveillance states are already headed towards the point of being able to use facial recognition to track people, and to a large extent this persecution is already happening. So we're talking about a world in which everyone implements this technology, presumably those states are already going to try to institute that technology, so the delta is very marginal. But second, and this is a response that they don't give to Max's analysis, which is that most autocratic states, for example, the Chinese government does not have codified in its laws that we ought to prosecute Uyghur Muslims. It is the interpretation and extrapolation of those laws that leads to those harmful applications. So when you have a robot and it's based on ethical and moral and these legal codified principles, it forces the state to either directly point to instances where individuals are violating this. And what ends up happening is that this has a trickle-down effect. Not only is it unlikely that technology is going to be abused by autocrats, but it puts more scrutiny and emphasis on them. You can no longer have police officers who turn a blind eye to, for example, high-collar crime because, oh, we just didn't see it. Because they have an objective metric to be able to execute those things they do. And in order to accountability on the state where done because given that they're already willing to vote that they so fear due to this modification.
Okay, speaking of accountability, how accountable is this AI? I.e., is it going to be transparent in decision making? I.e., slower, or is it going to be a black box thing which you can't justify? Since you know it's not about machine learning notion.
Bro, like it's case by case, right? Like AI is not gonna just be like, oh, like I'm gonna apply the same exact view. Like if you want to run, like talk about machine learning theory, like sure, try. But the reality of these models is like there's a lot of different parameters that end up influencing the given decision. Like it's not binary black and white. If you want to take on the very spirit, the problem with the disadvantage is that it's very simplistic binary and how these things work. No. I would like to extend what the other multitude of impacts are. One, I would posit a more transparency in the way we exert robots, introducing some facet of homogeneity in the system that leads to more faith in our reasons to believe the system. The reason why people feel disaffected in the status quo is because of otherness. They want to talk about human empathy. The problem in the status quo is that human empathy is skewed towards a majoritarian basis, where most people do not feel that empathy. So I don't care if you think that white people are kind to white people. I don't care about that robot is going to exert the same level of discretion to everyone. What ends up happening is we have more transparency and more justice to those people who are otherwise marginalized. They feel safer in their own communities, feel safer going out and participating with others. I second them to one extent on what Max brings you about why this is better for a high color crime. One system often under design, when you program a model that now is able to track bankage movements, for example, that enables us to catch the culprits who are dealing with millions of dollars and steering it away from methods to redistribute to the public. We get a better diagnostic of these issues all around instead of fueling into shitty corrupt systems that fail these people. The bottom line is this: over-policing means that cops are forced to resort to escalatory measures because they're fearful of their personal safety. Whereas on our side of the house, you get more dynamic system. You don't care about the emotion. We get objective measures instead of pulling out a gun on someone just because they can find the SUV to their family.
I thank the Deputy Prime Minister and welcome the dealer to end the top half debate. This else is.
What can we say about this? I have four responses. One, it is unlikely that the autocratic states will use this in order for certain documents to get arrived, right? One, because they're likely to get arrived either way on their side of the house or in the other house. Even the Robocop itself can take a ride, when you look for later, the judge is likely to take a ride in and of itself, so it's likely they won't get any positive effects on that at all. But secondly, notice that autocrats will want to incorporate the latest laws within the algorithm of these robots in themselves, right? So it means that they will get all the bad policing that those guys are talking about. But more importantly, recognize that currently in school, if in autocracies, there are cops that, for example, don't hate gay people, if you incorporate this algorithm within Russia, now you can use the algorithm to incorporate prosecution of gay people substantially more on their side of the house as opposed to on our side of the house. But look at the least of this, that obviously applies to all types of situations, not only autocratic states. So on our side of the house, we get a substantially bigger effect, even if they're correct that the Robocop is not going to take a bribe, even though the judge is going to take a bribe anyway. I want to talk about this idea of the data, right? Because they say the data is going to be a couple of things here. Number one, recognize that it takes data from historic results, right? That data is inherently racist because of the fact that the has been bad. A couple of things here. So Kamala Harris imprisoned like 20,000 black people for marijuana because of the fact that it was based on these people historically participating in that type of activity. The robot is likely to take that data and not other types of data because of the fact that it is very difficult to obtain data for a particular neighborhood. It's much easier to find data for a broad amount of people in a large community and therefore label everyone with the same type of brush. But thirdly, recognize that they're going to say, oh, we're going to incorporate it so that it's not racist. It's literally impossible to take out racist situations from the algorithm because you need to account for an unimaginable amount of data. Secondly, here, notice that racist behaviors are very often hard to spot, right? They're implicit, they're not something that explicitly happens. It is a slight decision of whether you shoot the white person with a gun or you shoot the black person with a gun, and in which case you use lethal and non-lethal force. That's not something the robot can account for, and it's not something that you can put on the algorithm. But then they say, oh, people have empathy, so they're going to program the robot in a way that works with people. But notice that people have much stronger feelings when it comes to safety that overcome the feelings of empathy that they have. So they're likely to make the robots police more and police more unfairly in order to keep themselves safe. But secondly, you know, the people that are programmed the corporation, they're not the people, right? And the corporation has an interest to abide by its KPI to make a lot of money, which means you have an incentive to make the robot act first and not be destroyed by someone with a gun or someone with a weapon, right? That means that the robot is going to be programmed in a way that is flawed. Two things in this speech from now on. Why are cops better and substantially better than Robocop in this house? First of all, they undergo meticulous training. They take years and years and years of going into these communities and police. Secondly, they're likely from local communities most of the time. Which means one, that people in the area know them and see them as human, and therefore do not attack them in the vast majority of cases. But secondly, the cops themselves know that people are within the area. It means they can de-escalate certain situations because they usually know personally the people from that particular community. That's something the robot cannot do. Thirdly, notice that the cops have the ability to take context into account when making decisions. When someone is running towards you, the robot is programmed that this is an attack on the robot, therefore it's likely to attack back. But if you are a police officer, officer, you're seeing that someone is just going for a run and you're not an actual danger because you see the facial expression of the person and you recognize it, that is something that the robot cannot do. But secondly, notice a lot of mistakes can be made in situations where there is a gun, right? So imagine a school shooting where the school guard has a gun and is trying to go to the person who is doing the school shooting and shoot him. In that situation, the robot just sees the person with a gun going into a school and decides to shoot the guard as opposed to shooting the actual person who's committing the shooting, right? Fourthly, cops have a fear to go to prison if they kill or if they misbelieve, right? It happens in the vast majority of cases. So even though cops often they make mistakes, obviously sometimes, but in almost all situations they go to prison, right? Or at the very least, they get a lot of social scrutiny for that happening. But secondly, notice that they fear a social backlash as well, because at the point at which something racist happens, the person who experiences this is likely to go to some social media, right, and to file complaints against the cop. This is not something that the robot is particularly interested in, because it is a literal AI machine that doesn't care about its perception that humanity has. 6, no thanks on this. See civilians see cops as human, right? So civilians are just actually less likely to harm a police officer or to commit a crime in the first place, right? Because imagine this is a calculus that's going through your head. If I go into the store and rob it at gunpoint, I need to be ready to kill the police officer the moment when he comes in. At the point in which that police officer is a Robocop, you don't particularly care about killing the Robocop because you don't have empathy for that particular Robocop. Which changes your calculus on a marginal level, meaning that you're committing more crimes on the other side of the house. Lastly here, I want to say that lives are rarely endangered for cops is that so because of the fact that they have substantial information, they usually go into groups when they go somewhere, and they also know which areas are the most dangerous. So that's why you don't have mass killing the cops on their side of the cops in advance. Why are the robots bad on their side of the cops? First of all, I mentioned the flawed algorithm is based on racist facts and based on the acts. Secondly, it's unable to take into account situations, also explained with the situation with the shooter. But thirdly, notice the technology itself is flawed, whatever it is, right? So these cops, they rely on some sorts of patterns, right? So battery can run out. It can mean that there are bugs in the algorithm, which means the robot will not function, even if it's the case that it's programmed perfectly in their world, as they try to say. But thirdly, it is vulnerable to being hacked, right, at any technology, which means it can be used by evil actors, or thing, and another thing, to commit crimes and to harm people in this way. But note that also, you are unable to sue the robot corporation that made it. Why is this the case? Number one, it is owned by a large corporation, which they have to pay millions to lawyers, as opposed to the police department that's usually underfunded and doesn't have a lot of money to protect the police officers that are being sued. But secondly, notice that because it is algorithm-based, lawyers usually don't understand algorithms, which means it's very hard to prove that the algorithm malfunctioned and the robot committed a heinous act, and therefore prove that the guilt of the corporation itself. And that means that people are essentially less able to control the policing that happens to them. But lastly, note that the robot is unable to relate to can yesterday, right? Which is a room else. It can't talk to them. It can't get information in that particular way. So lastly, recognize that when these robots are human missions, this leads to a chilling effect, which is the ultimate thing of our second house, right? This leads to people getting less investments in education and less investment in infrastructure, which means they're more likely to go into gangs, into crime. They're less, even if they don't go into crime and gangs, they're just less likely to get an education and less likely to get a life because their education issues are no longer relevant because the KPI is shielded in the non-crime area, and therefore they don't need that investment to go into their students. So proud.
Take the DLO and all speakers for a wonderful top hat. Reminder for people to take and engage with DOI as an important part of engagement that can make type comparisons. Member of God, you're here. I mean, that's I think. No. So I think like there's this videos like speakers around. Yeah, but you just speak normally. I don't capture you. Yeah.
This is good. Can I move it?
You can push it down.
We don't have any more than. We unfortunately are living in a world where the police doesn't guard us from crime. It unfortunately creates crime, perpetuates crime, defends it through misconduct, through over-policing, through defending criminal organizations. And sure, what happens on the top half happens? Cops are racist, robots are racist. We are going to argue that the whole structure of the police is structured in a way that it promotes the people that makes the most arrest on the vulnerable, that promotes the people with insufficient funds to have bribes to help criminal organizations. Why corruption within the police exists and why does it lead to perpetuation of crime? Firstly, let's talk about bribes and helping criminal organizations. Why does police take them? I think most uniformed officers, which we're talking about, because the Robocops are going to replace them, often don't have very high salaries, right? They put their life in danger. They are comparatively most in danger because they're on the front lines. They're facing the crime, which means they're receiving not that much amount of money, but they're also giving their life. And in that calculus, it's very hard for them to sell, especially when only the US has cameras on guns. Most of the world doesn't. And the situations that occur when citizens offer your right to just let this one car ticket or happen perpetually. Why does Robocop remove this ability? Note that the bribes and all those things happen specifically on uniform officers because they're the ones that constantly interact with the public. They're the ones that constantly get overbribed. So if we replace those people with robots, at least this part of the problem will be solved. Let's talk about also one second criminal organizations. Note that the evidence is gathered by the on-ground uniform officers and not detectives because again they're on ground, but also detectives have much more other work such as paperwork, they do it indoors and all those things. It's the uniform officer that you can buy in order to get rid of some evidence. Robots also solve this because they can now not get rid of evidence, they literally cannot. This is the very purpose of the robot. And bribes and helping organization. Because it keeps all these equality claims. If bribes exist, if criminal organizations get defended by police officers, this means that the very richest of societies who can't afford to get those bribes are the ones that are getting protected and there is no equality. And I think that secondly, this makes crimes worse because it makes those people shield criminal organizations, criminals themselves, people within the police now cooperate with them, making insufficient evidence for trial to happen. This means drug epidemics. This means shootdowns of affected victims in both neighborhoods. This is real impact upon victims. And I know this is important because they're talking about Bulgaria. Bulgaria is one country in the world. No, the developing world is mostly what is the world. In the developing world, people go to crime because they can't meet their standard of living. Police officers themselves cannot meet the standard of living. That's why they go to taking bribes. This is more than 50% of the world. But also in the developing. Look at Detroit, look at Texas, look at most of Paris, the slums in London. This happens on an everyday basis in every single country. I think this is a real problem, and your bias as probably very privileged individual shouldn't guard from it. Secondly, it creates crime through arrests because the basis on which individuals, especially uniformed officers, get promoted to detectives is on how many arrests they made because it's numerical, so it's easy to track. It is very competitive, so it's competitive between the different officers, and it's incredibly, as I said, easy to track. And after you do those arrests, they most often go to poor areas because it's easier there to make an arrest and have plausible deniability because they cannot get a lawyer to fight that claim. The case is easy to make because they are from a neighborhood that has criminal organizations. They probably have some ties to them. Why does this happen? Because they obviously don't care about the numbers of arrests they make, so they get promoted. But more generally, the commissioners in a moment that roles are implemented don't want high arrest numbers because it looks like crime increased or at least it didn't decrease. And here's something very specific. This technology is controversial as we can see by this very debate. But commissioners have the specific burden to make it seem like those roles are effective and thus decrease crime numbers. The only statistic that we have on crime is arrest. And so if you decrease arrest, it looks like you are tackling crime better. school. It throws them in a fuck-up prison system, making them fuck up their life even more. And for what? For them smoking weed, and so what? For one officer can get promoted? I don't think that's fair. Before I continue on police misconduct and just generally police abusing black people, yes.
If the situation is we're talking about the worst countries, then you can still grow the judicial system. If we're talking about the rest, not that many people
I am
do
not
crimes because of the
about
cops.
the worst countries. Again, I'm told these channels perpetually in the developed world. Even if you're talking about developed countries, there is an extent. Like an average individual can bribe the police officer for giving them a fine, but they cannot bribe the fucking judge that they're probably more expensive. Police misconduct happens because of human emotion. It happens because of fear, because of anger, because of feeling of proud or hatred. It happens probably because of the chemicals in your brain, because you feel like you're in a position of power in a moment that you're caught. You victims obviously robots. They don't have feelings. They are not racist. And so most of those decisions about police misconduct, about shooting a witness, happen within a split-second decisions. Those split-second decisions do not be driven by fear, by anger, by hatred. It's something important so we don't lose more people. Why do we win? I think it's obvious that OG might say efficiency. They even might have a similar example to us, but look at me in the eye and tell me that they had the same analysis and proof that I in my speech. Second, they say impacts robot programming. What do we have? Firstly, we're not dependent on democracy working, which OG is obviously dependent. Robots obviously don't take bribes. Robots obviously don't shoot based on hatred. And we don't need to prove that the algorithm is biased to prove that robots don't take bribes. For our movie, very clear PG.
Thank you, the government, member of all, right here.
I don't know, we buy that they solve criminal organizations ever happen, crime, bribery, everything, that these guys promised with CG. But yes, it should be because they solve mostly all of the crime ever in the world. But I don't think that this is probably where this debate is going. The first thing I want to know is that all of the problems they point into the status quo and police officers come to underpaying those individuals. I want to note very simply that the assertion we get from local government and that we want that they're based on in CG as well, like that this does not require a lot of money. It probably fucking does, because in order for you to maintain this entire thing, it requires a lot of cameras everywhere. You require data everywhere. You require adapting to the algorithm that keeps fucking up according to OG all the time, everywhere. And basically, when you have to do all that machine learning, retraining, everything, it's gonna cost significantly more money than actually paying police officers will on their side of the house. Because we think that if this is the trade-off, and it all comes down to the fact that they are not paid enough, then I fundamentally think, yeah, pay them more. But secondly, there are other ways, like they tell you, they're going to bribe the judiciary and they're going to get lenient payments. But it's not even about the judiciary, because then they have to prove that all countries have a bias, the judiciary, etc. It don't have to be the people, the same people that they describe, people that were police officers, that became, for example, detectives, that have to be bribed, for example. Or it have to be other individuals, such as the people that are actually doing the code, in order to actually allow people to continue the criminal organizations. Look, there's criminal organizations like gangs, like mafiosos, whatever you might want to call them, cartels. They're probably not going to go fuck the Robocops here because solve all of our operations now. They're probably going to go around finding the next best solution in order to put the system towards the paper. We've given you three different ways that will this system happen. We've given you an alternative which can solve the problems that CG identifies. I don't think they solve the world crime of closing government. On OG, I want to do two very simple things. The first one is that when results are appear, why they say, there's only going to be part of case-by-case kind of discrepancy, right? And we agree, right? The probably different cases are different, which is the reason why all of the mechanisms about bad apples stand for them as well, panel. There's the one which is case-by-case that can simply play. This will define what we have for the specific AI, with the serial code number 69420. And as a result, the specific AI is the one that fucked up, which is the reason why they don't get their benefits. In regards to democracy, they say, democracies are limited by the fact that they have to apply their laws. Like literally, they give all these responses, they don't give you the most basic one in Robo. They can simply change the laws, make them shift them towards being a bit more vague in order to include all the products that they want to do as democracies. I think that OG is out. But the one thing I want to make very clear in this speech, the one we've been closing opposition throughout, through that realize that apparently we're not good enough according to Ruben. I think that it's very important to know that the fuck-ups on their side of the house are universal. Like they literally tell you bad apples exist in the status quo. In order for this argument to be comparative, where the system fucks up, I keep bringing it down, guys, and where the fuck-ups keep happening, and you have to change the entire system. In order for this argument to be comparative, they have to prove to us that on our side of the house, all of the cops are fucked up, right? And ultimately, I think that they don't get to ever do that on their side of the house because of the fact that it's simply untrue. The people you know, like the simple states that they mentioned Detroit, Baltimore, Michigan, whatever. Yeah, okay, we can also mention different states which are actually pretty fucking well off when it comes to, for example, police. Like, I don't know, think of our utopian little city in the middle of nowhere in Chicago. They probably have well off. And all it is that the majority of the police officers are not as fucked up and they want to be on their side of the house. Which is why I think that it is unfair that they claim this harm to be so universal on their side of the house, but at the same time the benefit is so universal. Why is it then that we beat them? Two ways. First one, human aspect actually improves them and improves the general policing. The first thing I want to know is that accountability really matters. And it's the key concern when it comes to any artificial intelligence project ever. It happens on two levels. The first one is that they don't know and they can't explain how the AI functions most of the time. If they want those quick decision-making processes where individuals are able to make a spot decision, it is black box. By necessity, black box means that you can't explain why that decision was taken, and as a result, we don't get to have that retribution in society where people feel justice. What does that mean? It means that they don't feel like it's there to protect them, it's unable to explain to them. It also means that you don't know what's wrong with it a lot of the times, and that's the reason why you have to reprogram it, exactly because of the stacking stuff that Ruben tells you, but better. But the second reason why accountability is important is because of accountability between officers. This is crucial. Officers are different. Their side of the house, AI robots are the same. They have the same algorithm. But I can be able, like I can be a policeman, and then my partner is Mariah as a policeman, policewoman, even. I can yeah, I'm sorry. But in that scenario, when I found out as an individual, I don't have a yes woman next to me saying, yeah, that's what the algorithm says. There's no. We get, for example, a white individual next to me telling me, oh wait, it's kind of fucked up because it's racist. Like, not an ability that comes from diversity. We don't get it because it's all the same shit. What happens then when the same shit happens and actually manifests itself? The trajectory towards change is simple. We're going to reprogram it. Okay, guys, usually you told us talk about machine learning theory or whatever, but I didn't have to go into that. I just have to go to the point of saying that the trajectory improvement of the last is smoother and quicker because you guys have to reprogram it. I don't care how fast coders you are, or how good at machine learning you are, or how good this process is going to get. You're never going to do this faster than the opposition, which is able to tell the one cup, the bad apple that people talk about, fuck off out of my police force, right? Because that's the quick fix that you can get at the point at which you're able to rest of the house to get rid of individuals. And then you can do things to benefit the entire thing, but you can't simply reprogram the entire police force. Like, literally, what's going to happen with the meantime? Like, OG, go for it.
On your side, you fire a cop and claim to have solved the problem. Your second iteration of the analysis that we can notice universal challenges means we can program the robot and change it and avoid these discrepancies from manifesting on large levels.
That would be our analysis. We're entirely stupid in closing position. We literally told you we're going to get rid of that individual in time training. No one said that just because you kick out the fourth individual, we solve racism in closing government. I don't think any government ever does that right now. Deleted by the entirety of society. Why is it then that the feeling of safety is better on the day-to-day? This is important because it's not based on the algorithm being fucked up or anything. Politics matter for trust, being human. They say, you can negotiate, reason and potential. But it's more important than that. It's actually being able to give an explanation that I told you they can't have because of black holes, because it's either black holes or slow AI. They can't say slow AI because people get killed in the meantime, so it has to be black holes, so there's a house for them to get better. What does it mean when you're unable to explain and just basically see a robot running around but with a human? It means that, for example, we're not likely to trust them as much because of the fact that any human has the ability to actually feel fear, emotion. They don't on their side absolutely fear. or emotion. They say in opening argument, they can still sound fear because of the fact that they might mispolice. But it's not even just mispolicing, just using extra brutality, even in the cases where they're right. It's also looks like being able to just generally call the police and that's why I think that we go through them as close to the road police protection and I don't know what happened. Very powerful.
Thank you, Member Bob. Government to close the government. Here.
Oh, my, that's never
And you think I would do? I have. No, I don't
You
mean
should
this.
consider those bias.
Looking like this.
Thank you.
Okay. Imagine we're in police, certainly get promoted based on number of arrests, based on number of convictions. Why wouldn't you plan something else on? Why wouldn't you lie if you weren't sure whether, how you call this, whether they actually did the thing or not? You get promoted if they go to jail. You benefit if they go to jail. Personally, it's not this. Why wouldn't you pay a crime if you work for a shit salary every single day, risking your life for these kinds of particular things? Firstly, on corruption and misconduct, and then I'll wait to the others. What do they say about corruption and misconduct? Let's hear this. First, they say, you can bribe the judge. This ignores all of the legal analysis. You're overwhelmingly harder to bribe a judge because this is not a person making a shit salary. This is a person working a prestigious job that you scared to potentially lose. The police officer makes shit money and they risk their lives to make this shit money. They often perceive that they have nothing to lose, that they deserve these kind of things to reward themselves and all this. Again, these kind of things happen all the time. But then they won't do it because they're scared of backlash. What world do you live in? Firstly, note there is it's called the blue wall of silence in America. These that often prosecutors don't prosecute police officers for misconduct or for perjury or for any of this. You know that in LSE, 1/5 of police officers will be caught doing perjury or lying literally in court of this. Why don't they prosecute them? Because they fuck up their relationship with police, this fucks up their ability to themselves make prosecutions in the future and all these kinds of things. But secondly, they say there is a social element to it. People will judge you. For every one George Floyd, there are 1,000 cases where no one gave a shit, where you cracked someone's head, where you arrested them when they did nothing and planted something on them, and all these kinds of particular things. So why are you scared of these when it's your weight, your bones, whether you get promoted, something much closer to you, where it's directly money you're taking from pride or these kinds of particular things? How is corruption engaged and the response engaged there? Corruption is called. Because what they say? They say people take bribes in India. This is the extent of the analysis. Notice firstly, we put a scale to this. Why most officers or a massive percentage of them do this kind of thing? Why most of them get the sort of mentality of okay, I should do this kind of thing? Why most of them systematically are benefited by arresting innocent people and by convicting them for this kind of thing? But let's assume that you prove your rights. So I don't believe this is your badge if you create this answer. Okay, but let's assume this. At best, they prove that crime isn't solved. We prove that crime is created. When an innocent person goes to jail and they are not able to find a job afterward, that's when they turn to be criminals. That's when this situation gets worse. And you have an incentive to arrest these people and responsible. It doesn't matter if they did anything or not. If you say they did something, they're probably going to get convicted and you're probably going to get promoted. So you lie, so you plan things on them, so you do all of these types of horrible things. Because then, why are you writing this down? This is literally analysis proving they have intent for you. Like sorry, this is very much okay. How does this engage with the large scale points on all of these kinds of things? The large scale points of would they be deployed to over police? Would enforcement be equal or no? Notice firstly, I'm sorry, arguments about immunity are stupid and speculative. We don't know how this system is going to look like. It is presumably the future. We don't know who analyze it. We don't know any of these kinds of things. It's super duper speculative. There are flaws in human error. There are flaws in AI. Both of these things are reasonably flawed. You know what we will do? What's more different? That's different incentive. What is the police officer incentive on the field?
They try to make it correct. What robots intended not be in this type of particular case. So even if, how do you call this, over large scale detectors symmetric, we probably symmetry on the ground. But secondly, sure.
Even if you buy that 50% of cops will be corrupt, 100% of the, how do you say, corporation would want to scale the robot to do these harmful things. Our incentives are stronger than yours.
Why would someone hire a robot to increase crime? Why would you, as a decent person, want to hire a robot to decrease crime? Here's why you as a police officer do. You don't give a shit if this increases crime. You're not an elected figure. There is no form to do you. All you care about is that the numbers there. You get promoted, you get more money. You can more directly take. It's very difficult for you to prove the people who hire the robots extensively if they do actually worse crime or this kind of thing. Whereas the person was there. And this is the second piece of way. All of the large scale incentives are symmetrical. You can program a robot any way you want as a large, as a commissioner or all of these kinds of things. You can also tell your individual people to do whatever they want. But the incentives of the person on the ground differ from all. The body is 30. Let's assume none of that's true, and you prove over policing, and they prove over policing, and they prove over policing, and everybody proves over policing. Why do we still win the thing? Because we prove a form of over policing that is not only harmful insofar as it creates more people in crime, but it's ineffective. It doesn't actually lead to effective policing. It doesn't lead to large-scale criminals going to jail because they're the ones that get the most money. It leads to innocent people going to jail, to low-hanging fruit and stuff like this. People that are easy to make convictions against because they have no lawyers or this kind of thing, not the large-scale players. So even for policing on either side, which I think is maybe plausible to some degree, we do by our policing is much worse larger at the point where you don't even get less, how do you call them, less drug gangs or all these types of particular things, right? If all policing is to generate each benefit, it is solely badly, and that was only on our side. So all of what does this do today? All these arguments about equality, who's more racist, the system, or whatever, I mean, probably both systems will be racist to some degree. We prove that one system is disproportionately more likely to fuck up shit on the ground, to be ineffective, to not convict the people that are necessary to convict. Finally, opposing opposition's point about large-scale fuck-ups. Not firstly, you will probably do tests to see if the robots will go that crazy. And I recommend this is a cop-out response, but it is a response. I'm not saying there are impacts, doesn't exist, but probably people having the worst of it. You start walking around, people on the street, and all these types of particular things. Maybe some other stuff can. But secondly, it's very crucial. There are human checkups in case of a fuck up like this, right? Not that like there are prosecutors, they say, okay, the robot fucked up, we're not going to prosecute this crime. Why doesn't this happen when the police officers are human? Because you're friends with the prosecutor, you're friends with the detective. You tell them, no, I trust me. I cannot platform you for this kind of thing. These human checks don't work if you're talking human doing the already, and a human lobby for the for this kind of thing. But finally, they say fuck up check on large scale. Yeah, so do police fuck ups. When we tell you that the system rewards this kind of thing, there will be many people on a large scale fucked up in a much worse way. Hold
Thank you. Welcome the opposition with to end the debate. Here.
The reason why we need this debate is because we're the only team that really addresses what happens when the AI actually malfunctions, and that is the universality of the mistakes, right? The fact that a mistake happens in one Robocop, whatever they're called, they happen in all Robocops. If there's a malfunction in the algorithm, it happens everywhere, and that's catastrophic because the amount of Robocops that they want to release into the world is huge, right? We're talking about mass replacement here. So one mistake is enough to be catastrophic catastrophic. That's why we don't really agree with CG that like response allegedly on our case because you know they tell us that it's not really gonna happen that often. What we tell you is that if it happens once and there's like millions, 2 million Robocops in the world, it is enough to cause more harm than like any cop could cause in throughout many years. That's the weight of our case to talk about massive harm to people from one mistake. And you know what? Although they give us a lot of cases where this malfunction can happen, right? They talk about, for example, malfunction in the algorithm, which can happen anywhere. Like my laptop, it sticks sometimes. There are problems with it. Like whatever, with every kind of technology, there can be a malfunction. We can't control that 100%. Then they also tell us, like for example, what was the other thing? About hacking. Yeah, they give us these reasons, but they don't really do anything with it. What we tell you is that you have many potential faults in the system. Even racism, right? It doesn't have to be a huge fuck up in the system where it breaks down completely. It can be an instance of, for example, a racist Robocop or whatever. That doesn't happen in one case, one bad apple, as OG was pushing. It happens everywhere. It's like blanket, and we're the only team that actually put that into framing. That's why we win the debate, because we actually bring to you the scale of this argument, right? Now, why don't you really fix the algorithm that quickly? Because firstly, it takes time, right? It takes expertise. Obviously, you need to find the mistake, you need to recode it, and then you need to apply it, right? And that's why we don't really buy that you can just keep fixing things. If one Robocop has this problem and the other one has that other problem, because what if the problem is your database, right? What if the problem is the data that you have to do? What happens then? So that's why you can't really, make changes in the algorithm whenever somebody pops up. It's just not that efficient, right? And when OG talks to us about a case by case, like, format of doing this thing, what we tell you is that firstly, they're trying to have humans, but they have to defend Robocops. But technically, we have the case by case system, and they don't really agree with it because, we deal with one person. And why is it better, right? Why is it better to deal with one police officer rather than trying to reform the whole system? Firstly, because you solve things much better, right? You do have accountability under our side of the house. And secondly, it does happen because it can be really hard to solve the whole algorithm. But getting rid of those cases is far quicker, and it does give restitution to the victims, which under our side of the house is extremely important, right? Because we're the only people here who actually care about the victims of those crimes and not only about what happens to the robots, right? We bring to you how the people feel, and that's extremely important because police work is not only about how efficient it is also about how people feel about it. Because that's when they can report crimes, that is when they cooperate with the police in their investigation, and that is when police actually becomes much more efficient when the people have trust in it. That's why we this debate. Secondly, we have a huge misinterpretation of how the AI will look like. CG told us that we're speculating, they are speculative as well. They also didn't really give us any form of how the AI will look like. At least we have the version of it. If they disagree with it, they can give us something else. What we tell you is that with the way that AI works already, we will probably have the programming of the robot with particular data, and you also will probably have a black box. Why is the black box a problem that they never address? Because we tell you that firstly, there's no transparency. What this means is that firstly, you can't really fix the mistakes of the point where they're not as easily accessible when the black box is closed for security reasons as well. If you make the black box more transparent, the security of the whole thing becomes really vulnerable. In their case, really false, like PGK. That's why it's hard for them that they didn't address it. If they don't care about the black box and potentially it's open to, for example, hacking and it's vulnerable, whatever, and many people have access to it. Even it's not like hacking. Their bright system still goes up with the Robocops, but it's because of the universality, it's much more catastrophic. Thirdly, let's go to CG's case about brides. How do brides happen? Because they have this view that in every crime you can just go and see the point into a call, and then you're not arrested for your crime. Yeah, that might happen in speeding tickets. I can give them 50 euros and be like, here, but speeding tickets, okay, yeah, law enforcement is not, we care about that, but not as much as other crimes, which are far more important, right? We're talking about killing people dying and more important crimes happening. In those crimes, it's not like stashing a gun from evidence. It's not as easy as me giving you a 50 and saying, oh, please stash that gun for me. Why? Because high profile cases and important crimes have a lot more police officers covering them. That's why, as Maurice said in his speech, it is less likely that these people are and it could be detrimental to their career. And guess what? It's also a crime that because you're a police officer, you have a lot more accountability of them on you, and you're probably going to get arrested too. Yeah.
Your analysis that screw-ups are wide-scale is the intuition that already underlined your OO. Even if screw-ups are equally bad, the ability to scrutinize this information still exists, and the propensity to stop things like mass shootings still applies now.
Because it doesn't matter, even if it happens once, it's extremely bad. And we're telling you that the likelihood of something bad happening once is very high. Now, on bribes, how do they happen? It happens usually when like high crime organizations have some cops on their payroll, and that's how they do it. When you have high profile people like that, they probably are going to be able to infiltrate the system as well with Robocops. They're not just judges, right? They can infiltrate the algorithm. They can have people who are coding, like you can pay a person who's a coder for the police to change the thing to, get you out of it. So, you know what? We think CG is out because of the whole bribe thing, because it doesn't really happen at the end of the day. Now, so why do we win this game? Because firstly, we win overall because we bring you A, the lack of diversity that you now have with Robocops. B, because we have more accountability and transparency in the police, which is extremely important in fixing the mistakes, and in also having persecution for the victims, which if everything else falls, right, if everything else is washed, that is the one thing that stands because no one has addressed it. And we think it's extremely important how the victims and their families feel when, because that is one of the key principles of justice, right? So for all of these reasons,
Cool, I thank everyone for a good debate. I'll see you in 15 minutes.
we have